Good evening, everyone. Welcome to California Today. I'm David Zhang. Here is a look at some of today's top stories. Heat waves continue to scorch regions around the world. We'll learn more on how to keep cool amid brutal temperatures from our Southern California team. Hollywood as an entire industry could collapse because of the strike. We talked to Hollywood insiders to get their take. The U.S. Coast Guard seized 5 tons of illegal drugs. This operation was a part of an effort to combat transnational organized crime. First up, the Bay Area woman who was kidnapped in Mexico last year has been found. She is safe and will return to her family in the United States.
According to the FBI, Monica de Leon Barba's captors released her on July 14th. The San Mateo resident was kidnapped in Tepetitlan, Jalisco, Mexico, while walking home from work with her dog on November 29, 2022. Surveillance video shows that Barba was confronted by several suspects and forced into a gray Volkswagen Jetta. The suspects then drive away in 3 different vehicles. Barba's dog remained loose on the street. Her dog was later safely located and recovered by a family member. At least 5 suspects were involved in the kidnapping. No arrests have been made yet. Barba is safe and will return to the U.S. Barba lived in California most of her life and moved to Mexico to pursue a photography career.
With the heat wave taking over Southern California, it's important to keep yourself safe and protected during this dangerous time of forecast. NTD's Christina Corona tells us how to keep cool this summer.
California is experiencing more frequent episodes of extreme heat, creating a greater danger of a heat-related illness. The city of Los Angeles is offering ways to keep cool and beat the heat during this intense heat wave. With the temperatures hovering close to triple digits, Los Angeles County has taken the initiative to establish cooling centers across a variety of locations throughout the area. Many of these centers will be at city recreation and park facilities that all offer shelter and cooling during regular business hours throughout the summer. To find a cooling center near you, you can visit ready.lacounty.gov/heat. You can also visit Cool Spots LA app at climateforla.org to find a variety of locations to cool off at in your area. They have a list of hydration centers, cooling centers, recreation and park facilities, pools and splash pads, and even libraries available to you to visit. But if you can't make it to a cooling center, try to visit public buildings with air conditioning during the hottest hours of the day if the heat becomes unbearable. Libraries, shopping malls, and movie theaters can all be good places to cool down. Large stores such as Costco and even public transportation can be an alternative way to stay cool. Another way to escape the heat this summer is by taking advantage of the DWP's rebate program. The DWP and Cool LA program is offering a $225 rebate on portable or window unit air conditioners for customers enrolled in one of its discounted rate programs. Customers can qualify if they are enrolled in Easy Safe, Lifeline, Life Support Equipment Discount, and Physician Certified Allowance Discount. If you are not enrolled in any of these programs, they are giving a $75 rebate to all customers who buy a better and more efficient portable, wall-mounted, or window air conditioner this summer. To receive your rebate and air conditioner, you can visit ladwp.com. So beat the heat, stay hydrated, and take advantage of the cooling opportunities that your city is offering. Christina Corona, NTD News, Los Angeles.
As the Hollywood strike lingers, businesses that support and supply lighting and other equipment are struggling to stay afloat. One rental shop owner explains how he is impacted.
Brian Godwin is feeling the pinch. His Los Angeles business, Wooden Nickel, has been providing lighting and other equipment to Tinseltown Productions for over 3 decades. But with Hollywood actors joining film and television writers on strike, there are far fewer sets to rent his gear.
When the writer's strike came in, it wasn't overnight, but within the course of several weeks, we were down, I want to say, 50% from the previous year in both quantities of jobs and dollar volume. Now that the actors have entered in, this week is a disaster. It's down a good 50% again, which means that we're running 25% of cash flow to what we were, first of the year. It's slow.
With once empty shelves brimming with equipment, Godwin, who started the business as a cameraman, says his cash flow has turned negative.
It was incredibly more busy a number of years ago. Our average rentals were 10,000 rentals in a year. Now we're down, tracking at about 5,500 for the year, and it's kind of falling off. We could be to the point where the shelves were half or even empty, and we'd run out of even C-stands, which we have almost 600 C-stands in stock. Right now, plenty of C-stands in stock.
Man, 2017, it was busy, you know what I mean? We were always slammed. We had a bigger crew. We had like about 25 people out here working. And, you know, COVID hit, we brought back half the crew. And now that, you know, the strikes are going on, you know, it has slowed down a little bit. But yeah, I'm seeing it, you know, like these strikes are impacting a lot of people.
But while film and television sets may be going dark, Godwin hopes smaller productions and student projects may keep him afloat until a resolution is reached between the studios and the actors and writers unions.
It's impacted all of the businesses in both my levels and larger, and certainly much more of the smaller people are being impacted worse than me. I still have business because of the nature of my core business, the small YouTube videos, student shoots. I still have some business, but anybody that catered directly to commercials now, because of the actors on strike, not happening. Nighttime TV, none of that's happening. They're dead in the water, and sadly, I hear of huge layoffs.
The joint strike by Hollywood actors and writers is the first dual work stoppage to face studios in 63 years. Studios have been forced to halt many productions across the United States and abroad. Both SAG-AFTRA and the Writers Guild of America are demanding increases in base pay and assurances that their work will not be replaced by artificial intelligence.
So now the question is, could the entire Hollywood film and TV industry collapse? With the actors and writers on strike, there will be fewer things to watch. People may cancel their streaming subscriptions, and without that streaming revenue, Hollywood may have a hard time creating new content. NTD's Colin Fredrickson talks with the industry insiders for insights.
Over the weekend, media mogul Barry Diller told CBS's Face the Nation that the entire Hollywood industry could potentially collapse. If the writers and actors can't strike a deal with the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, Hollywood will produce less content. Less content means canceled subscriptions, which means there may not be enough money to create new content.
If it is an entire shutdown, it's going to hurt a lot of people. A lot of people who are working, this is how they make their living. They've got families to support, businesses. It's going to be a tough thing.
SAG actress Laura Rico has been in the Screen Actors Guild for over 2 decades. She says the strike is necessary, though nobody really wants it to happen.
If it does collapse, it's gonna be nasty. You know, so many people look to entertainment for happiness and for a getaway. People learn from TV and film. People relate. People that are, you know, there's a lot of people out there who are very lonely and they live alone. And for them, it's watching a family on TV and learning from that.
Some in Hollywood don't believe the industry will collapse. There have been Hollywood strikes in the past, and in the end, they were all resolved.
I really don't think the studios are going to cut off their head to spite themselves. Without actors, without writers, there's not going to be content. So at some point, not making money is going to be a problem.
Ricky Lee Travolta has been in entertainment all his life. He says that both sides are just flexing right now and will eventually strike a deal before too much damage is done. At the moment, a lot of content has already been shot, but if the strike goes on for too long, there will be a lack of content for 2024.
If the strike goes longer as 2 months, then we will have a real crisis, because to make a film or a TV show takes almost a year in total. So means like the real delay, we see 2024 based on what's happening now.
Uwe Ball is a director and producer who's produced over 50 films with actors like Jason Statham, Ben Kingsley, and Michelle Rodriguez. He's trying to cast Wesley Snipes for his new movie, but the strike is making it hard. Ball says that even if many people cancel subscriptions, he doesn't think it'll cause the entire industry to collapse. Colin Fredrickson, NTD News.
Several states have enacted new laws on LGBT, and California's Attorney General responded by banning state-funded travel to those states. The list now includes nearly half of the U.S., which is deemed to have anti-LGBT laws, according to California's AG. NTD's David Lam reports.
Attorney General Rob Bonta recently announced 3 more states that will be added to the state travel ban. Once Missouri, Nebraska, and Wyoming are added, that will be a total of 26 states on the banned list. Now, Bonta cited Assembly Bill 1887, which says California must take action to avoid supporting or financing discrimination against lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people. That means state agencies are prohibited from requiring any state employee to travel to another state that has laws discriminating on the basis of gender identity and orientation. This also applies to the University of California and CSU system. According to the Attorney General's office, Missouri and Wyoming are added to the restricted list because of their new laws enacted this year, prohibiting schools from allowing transgender girls to compete in athletic competitions based on their gender identity. And Nebraska is being added for its Let Them Grow Act, which prohibits gender-altering procedures for 19-year-olds or younger. Now, Bonta said by preventing transgender individuals from participating in sports aligned with their gender identity or by denying them access to critical health care, these legislative actions directly contradict the values of inclusivity and diversity. However, Omaha, Nebraska Senator Kathleen Calif, who introduced the Let Them Grow Act, said individuals under 19 are not able to fully comprehend the seriousness of undertaking life-altering procedures. The state's travel ban does have several exceptions, such as for litigation, complying with law and contractual obligations, or job-required training. In Santa Clara, California, David Lam, NTD News.
The Coast Guard seized more than 5 tons of illegal drugs, worth an estimated $158 million. Crews in San Diego offloaded the narcotics on Monday. The haul included more than 11,000 pounds of cocaine and 5,500 pounds of marijuana. Coast Guard crews from 3 ships seized the drugs in the Eastern Pacific from May to July. It's part of their efforts to combat transnational organized crime and disrupt drug flow to the U.S. Several other agencies helped out, including Customs and Border Protection, the FBI, the Drug Enforcement Administration, and Immigration and Customs Enforcement. The Coast Guard says the Mexican Navy also assisted. We'll now take a short break, everyone, but here's what we have for you when we come right back. A bill that will require judges to consider race when sentencing criminals. Presidential candidate Larry Elder shares his thoughts with me on the California proposal. The state's Water Resources Board is considering turning wastewater into drinking water. Safety concerns remain about its consumption. This beer company is shutting its doors after being in business for over a century. They cite declining sales, but there may be hope in saving the brewery. These stories and more coming up on California Today. Welcome back to California Today, everybody. I'm your host, David Zhang. A bill in California backed by state Democrats could require judges to take race into account when they sentence a convicted criminal. I spoke with the presidential candidate Larry Elder to hear his thoughts on the controversial bill. Thank you for joining us, Larry. So, a California State Assembly lawmaker proposed AB 52, which would require courts to take race into consideration when doling out a sentence. Now, the bill's author also believed that the existing court system is racially biased and needs to be rectified. Do you agree with that?
No, I don't. And David, thank you for having me. It's hard to start with how boneheaded and offensive this thing is. Courts are supposed to be colorblind. And the idea that if you commit a crime, somehow you did it because of your race is offensive on its nature. There are lots of people who come from terrible circumstances, poverty, homelessness, wrecked homes, who don't commit crime. If we don't hold people responsible for the decisions that they make, then anybody could argue that I've come from a disadvantaged background, and if I commit a crime, I'll get a pass because I can then plead to the court, please have mercy on me because of my race. It is deeply offensive. And by the way, I just saw an interview with a young lady who argued, she's in the entertainment field, David. She argued that white executives did not understand black culture, and that's why they needed to hire black people to do entertainment fare. So when you're asking the judge to take into consideration race, are you asking a white judge that you claim does not understand the black plight to take that into consideration? Are you asking black judges to take it more into consideration? And by the way, do we take into consideration the race of the victim? It is a sad truth that half of all the homicide victims in this country are black, and almost all of them are killed by other black people. So when a black person kills another black person, do we take the race of the victim into consideration? The whole thing is just complete and utter nonsense. It stands the whole notion of MLK of wanting to evaluate people based on content of character rather than color of skin completely and totally on its head.
Well, as you know, the California state legislature is very polarized and partisan. Since the bill was proposed by a Democrat, it has a good chance to get passed. What will happen when the bill does get passed?
Well, you know what's going to happen if it gets passed. It's going to be challenged. It's going to go up possibly to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court will rule it unconstitutional because it violates the 14th Amendment equal protection. Why should a black person who commits a crime, or Hispanic or an Asian or a white person be treated differently given that he or she committed the same crime based on somebody's race? It'll be thrown out just as in California the Democrat lawmakers passed a bill and the governor signed it, mandating that every publicly held corporation in California have a female member on the board. It was thrown out as a violation of the 14th Amendment. Then there became another law that mandates every publicly held corporation in California have a member of the LGBTQ community. That's in the courts. It too will be kicked out because of the 14th Amendment. Reparations will also be challenged. It too will be turned down because of the 14th Amendment. And so will this. So it'll be an exercise in futility. It may take a few years, but ultimately the courts are going to rule it is a violation of the equal protection of the Constitution, the 14th Amendment.
I think the bill's author also realizes this, and the text of the bill is worded rather vaguely. It says the bill will require courts, whenever they have discretion to determine a sentence, to consider the disparate impact on historically disenfranchised and system-impacted populations. It didn't specifically say which race and how much race should be factored in during sentencing.
Yeah. And David, there was a time in our country when race was taken into consideration, except racists did it. The Emmett Till case, the famous case in 1955, where a Chicago kid was in, I think it was Mississippi, and he either whistled at a white woman or hit on her in some sort of way, and he was brutally murdered. And the men who were captured and charged were found not guilty by an all-white jury, and the all-white jury later on admitted that they knew very well that these men did it, but they set them free because of their race. So now we're going to take into consideration race in a different way by liberals, when in fact racist whites used to do that. It's completely unfair. There's a reason that there's a blindfold on Lady Liberty, and that blindfold is to show that justice is supposed to be blind.
Any thoughts you have on reducing crimes in general?
Many of these men who've committed these crimes came from homes without fathers. And if the legislature really wants to do something, they should talk about the epidemic of fatherlessness, where 70% of black kids now enter the world without a father in the home, married to the mother. And the stats are clear, David. If you're raised without a dad, you're 5 times more likely to be poor and commit crime, 9 times more likely to drop out of school, and 20 times more likely to end up in jail. 25% of blacks entered the world without a father in the home in 1965. Now that number is almost 70%. And I believe that the welfare state has incentivized women to marry the government and incentivize men to abandon their financial and moral responsibility. And that is one of the reasons why crime is so high in the black community. If these guys really want to do something, they ought to be addressing the root cause of all of this.
Thank you so much, Larry, for sharing your thoughts.
My pleasure.
California has put forward a proposal to convert domestic and industrial wastewater into drinking water, but safety concerns still remain regarding its consumption.
Municipal wastewater could one day be mixed in with water systems as part of Governor Gavin Newsom's water recycling strategy. That's according to a series of proposed regulations that California's State Water Resources Control Board announced on July 11th. Newsom's water supply strategy aims to recycle and reuse at least 800,000 acre-feet of water per year by 2030, costing around $10 billion, and an additional 1.8 million acre-feet by 2040, costing around $27 billion. Darine Polhemus, Deputy Director for the Division of Drinking Water, insists that the recycled water is of higher quality and lower risk than many traditional drinking water sources. But according to the University of Florida, though reclaimed water from wastewater is highly disinfected and treated, it may still contain substances at levels that disqualify drinkability. Darcy Burke, the board president of Elsinore Valley Municipal Water District, said on Epic TV that the drought issue facing the state is a result of poor policies. She says a vast majority of water is wasted every year by releasing it into the Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta. This is due to a mandate by the state's environmental policy, which insists that the move is necessary to protect endangered fish.
San Francisco's iconic Anchor Brewing Company, known for pioneering craft beers in the 1970s, will close its doors after struggling with the declining sales amid challenging economic conditions. Frequent customers say they are sad to see it go.
After years of declining sales due to tough economic conditions, San Francisco's famous Anchor Brewing will close down and sell off its assets. Known for its innovative brewing techniques, Anchor Brewing gained popularity in the 1970s and became a sought-after brand nationwide.
It's very sad. I'm a native San Franciscan and I've been drinking the beer as long as I can remember. It's one of my favorites and it's like losing an old friend.
You gotta come here. This is the oldest brewery in California. This is the one that is like kind of legacy breweries that's still around and it's fun to go to. There's a lot of other newer beers with tastier beers, but this one's the one to go to.
However, the rise of canned cocktails, spirits, and wines, along with the impact of COVID-19 lockdowns, made it challenging for brewers to turn a profit. Despite efforts to find a buyer, the company was unsuccessful. San Francisco locals expressed shock at the news and rushed to buy remaining inventory and merchandise.
We definitely had to come down, get our hands on whatever Anchor we could bring back home and, come see the brewery and enjoy a steam beer one last time here in San Francisco.
While the brewing operations have stopped, packaging and distribution will continue until the end of the month.
They, however, may be one last attempt to save Anchor Brewing Company. Since their closure announcement, 24 individual investors have expressed interest in buying part or all of the company. All right, everyone, that's all we've got for you tonight. We would like you to join us again on California Today every weekday at 8 p.m. Make sure to check out our broadcasts at ntd.com/California-today. You will find all of our top latest clips there, ready to share with friends and family. Send us a message on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Ganjin World, or through our email, california.today@ntd.com. If you'd like to share news tips or let us know how we're doing, we'd love to hear from you. I'm David Zhang. Have a wonderful evening.